Mind your way. All right, I'll call the October 3rd DRB meeting to order. First is agenda changes.
Yes, we have two. Vermont Well Pump has requested continuance. In review, there were some major flaws in their application, and they want a chance to be able to fix those. So they've requested continuance to the next meeting, which would be the October 17th. And the other change the agenda for other business. We have a request from McKinnon, who's doing one of the 10 to 12 lot subdivisions. They need a 2-week extension. And I'll talk about that in other business because it actually would make sense in a lot of different ways.
All right. Should we vote on the continuance now, or we'll do it?
You're talking about for Well and Pump?
Yeah.
Sure, you can put it right now in the meeting if you'd like.
So moved to continue to the meeting of 10/17?
Mm-hmm.
Second. So which one? That was the Vermont Well Pump?
Yes.
Correct.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, if everybody can review the minutes of September 19th.
As I handed out, John Slason had some comments on the minutes. I recommend that we can ask Dawn to just kind of synthesize it a little bit and just put a little something in there based on what he wanted to add.
This was rec fields, right?
No, it's the first couple of things that, well, actually, his comment, right.
All of this you wanted to put in the minutes?
No, just actually part of, I think it's A that is for the minutes.
Well, what's different? What did we say? What did we say he said versus what he said?
All right.
He said.
I would just simply simplify it by saying that John Slason, acting as a member of the public,
Well, where are we in the minutes?
I'm looking at A in the handout thing I gave you.
Okay, there we, yeah.
I think we capture all the substance. I have no problem just kind of transposing John's summary, although I think Dawn got it completely right.
I leave that to you.
Oh, so it's only one place. It's only in,
A. Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, the other things were comments that he had as far as the rec fields. And actually one comment on CSWD, but it's going to be a moot comment.
What's that?
Number C, that he gave. I'm sorry, not in the minutes, but in the handout that I gave.
Something that needs to change in the minutes? I'm not
No,
understanding.
no.
Oh, okay, all right. I move to approve as amended.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, up next is Town of Hinesburg. We reopened the meeting.
Yeah, I'm going to do a little something on this. I usually don't try to speak at a lot of these meetings, but I think I'm just in the right situation where I can. I oftentimes say DRB, there's 7 minds are better than one, and there was a concern that you kind of picked up upon with the traffic flow on CSWD, and it was one of these things that I didn't really see until actually Mike Anthony had a really great comment about actually why doesn't the entrance come over here? If the booth was actually moved over, you could add 100 feet of stacking. But the real issue here is when we look at the traffic circulation over here, is the fact that you have a way in and a way out, which is very close, and you have a lot of vehicles coming in and coming out in this mixed travel portion, which, I'd just like to just say, basically, there wasn't, it seems like there wasn't, and Brian, you can please comment on this, it wasn't really a big effort at this point to really kind of redesign this and make it actually fit at this particular point in time, because I took a little look at it, and if you take this, shift this down over here, and look how many parking spaces you can have here and here, doing a rough calculation, you could actually get 9 over here, easily 9 to here, plus a few more over here. But in total, there's some disagreement as far as how to actually work this site. So rather than really deal with a lot of the different comments and a lot of different concerns, what the town is proposing is to take this phase out of the picture for right now. One of the sheets that you have is the 4 different phases of construction. Simply, the first phase would be to build the town garage. The second phase was to take out all of the town buildings over here, in essence clearing it for a move for CSWD, as well as to fix and vegetate the buffer area. The third phase was going to be moving the CSWD, and then the fourth phase was going to be putting up the salt shed. And this was, let me see if I can get this here, it was a lot more focused before. Let's break it while we're doing it. I think that's about as good as it's going to get. What the town is proposing is for right now, they're seeking approval just for the first 2 phases. And they will come back to finish up the project in the future. That first phase, which I mentioned, is just putting up the town garage. And I spoke to someone in Steve Smith's office. The real concern as far as the construction is this one little area here. It's a for the wash bay. It's the holding tank for the water that comes out of the wash bay. And looking at where the fence happens to be and all that, it was of the opinion that this could be done without affecting CSWD's operation. So CSWD can continue to operate while the garage is built. There's a ramp that's going to be built over here, the stormwater ponds, and this would be phase 1. CSWD can continue to operate as it happens to be. And then you have phase 2, which would be clearing out the site. The one change that will happen to the CSWD facility is there will be an improved entrance exit built. And again, speaking to someone in Mr. Smith's office, this could possibly be staged also in a way, since CSWD is only really there 1 day a week. Granted, you come in other days, CSWD comes in other days to take away some of its roll-offs and so forth, and a little bit of coordination would be necessary. But these 2 phases could be done, and CSWD can continue to operate. The only change that may be, and just looking at the possibilities, is since it may delay the salt shed actually being placed, it is possible that the town may want to maintain the existing salt shed until such time as the rest of the site is figured out. And also talking to someone in Steve's office, on phase 3 there are some stormwater ponds over here that may be beneficial to actually build after these are actually.
How's the garage accessed in phase
Garage?
2?
Phase 2?
So
In
that
phase
little
one,
road
there's-
with the red lines on either side maintained, it stays in place?
It's pretty
and
much here right now. It's gotta be improved.
Same route out?
Same route.
Okay.
Yep.
So I provided a track change draft decision where simply the first two phases are proposed and the town proposes to come back sometime in the future when the layout and setup and move and all can be can be fixed. And it is in the town plan. The town would like to have CSWD stay in Hinesburg. It's also in the town plan to actually have a new garage. But people have to remember, CSWD is an independent agency, and you're welcome to do as you choose. But I know I can just basically say that the town would very much like CSWD to stay.
Let me ask this. The salt shed as it exists, is that compliant with town and state regulations?
It is outside of the buffer area, and so there is no nonconformity to it.
And in terms of overhead cover and so forth, there are no issues with that?
Actually, it would not
There's
change
no
the, it would not change.
regulations governing how salt is stored in municipalities?
I don't have, I wouldn't know. Do you know anything about that?
Don't.
It would basically be done, I would imagine, the same way as it's been done for years.
Well, I'm assuming the state might not allow just a uncovered salt pile to stand, especially in proximity to streams and so forth. This is covered as it stands now?
Jude, do you know the answer to that?
I believe it is, but.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is, and it has a roof on it, not sure.
My concern is, we're doing a site plan, and if there are nonconformities existing in the site plan, I think we have at least an obligation to debate whether we ought to demand corrections to any shortcomings with the existing site plan. And that was the point about asking whether there are nonconformities in the existing salt shed structure and appurtenances around it.
Well, it's a valid question. I'm not an expert on salt sheds, but as I understand, this one here is it's a covered building. There are a couple of different lines here. This is the 75-foot offset from the top of bank, which would be the town setback. There is an additional line over here, place which is CWD's 100-foot setback, which I don't think it's so much for, well, it would basically be for CSWD facilities. If I'm not, I've got that correct.
Part of the solid waste rules.
Yes.
So.
So that's what this this line happens to do. This line over here is the 75-foot, so it is in compliance in terms of setbacks.
Are they going to, I can't remember what phase they're stopping at, with the phase that we stop at, are they planning to demolish the original building?
These buildings
Yes.
here, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, all the buildings will come down.
And Greg, I can answer your question. I just texted Mike Anthony, he confirmed that it is covered, it has a roof, the existing salt shed.
So that's gonna stay though, as part of phase two?
I'm just gonna say, the town may want that option for that staying.
I guess my overriding gut concern is whether the salt shed as it stands now is in violation of any state, federal, or municipal regulation, such that we'd be approving a site plan that has a deficient aspect to it.
I'm just saying, I think the original plan was to actually tear it down.
Well, I understand that, but we're not moving forward with that, and I, for one, may not be comfortable approving a plan if there are existing deficiencies, so I'd like some kind of assurance that there aren't.
But has the town even approved a new salt shed? I
Um,
don't believe it, have it?
There is a designed salt shed that would have been going over here.
We've approved that money already?
Um,
It's in the bond.
It's in the bond.
Yep.
It is?
Yeah, it is. It's part of the whole estimate.
Can they put the salt in the old town garage?
That's within the
Town garage
setbacks.
is in the setback, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but the one across the way
No.
over by the
Yeah.
solid, the
Oh.
solid, so, yeah, there's like 3 bays or something in there, 4 bays, I don't know.
I imagine that they could possibly do that.
Have you ever seen that sand pile?
What?
I don't think it would fit in there.
It looks, I mean, on my Google Maps. it
I mean,
looks
is the
like
salt is
size.
covered or the salted sand is covered?
You're talking about just.
I don't believe the sand pile's covered, is it, after it's
I think it's
mixed?
just the salt.
Right,
that's
and then they
covered.
mix the sand and then that's a huge pile. But the state hasn't said we are in violation of where the salt shed is now, right?
Right.
Well, have we asked?
If you wanted, you could look at it as a
I
pre-existing
don't
condition that's remaining, or if you want, I'm just simply gauging, Renee, correct me if I got this wrong, if this is a sticking point, I think the town would rather just say, we'll take it down.
I just, as a regulator, I'm fine on kicking a CWSCD thing down the road, but if we're approving a site plan and there are potential violations with respect to the existing salt shed, I think we ought to be concerned about that now. And I'm assuming there's not, but I'd like some kind of assurance that there isn't, rather than just continuing this indefinitely, which is, I mean, in theory, it would be like continuing indefinitely a violation of some state, federal, or municipal regulation.
Well, you can just make that a condition. Okay.
And that's all I'm proposing, Ted.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Okay.
I'm asking as a condition that we get some certification that retaining the salt shed and existing confirmation is not going to continue an existing violation. And if it's not, then I'm fine.
All I can say is from a location point of view.
No, I get that.
Yeah, it is fine.
So I guess I'm missing that, sorry. It looks to me like the salt shed is in the stream buffer.
All right,
So-
there's two different lines here. that I'm gonna This line over here is the 75-foot stream buffer.
Yeah,
There is a second red line over here, that is the 100-foot buffer, that is for CSWD.
But it's in the
funds.
okay, but it's in the
75
75-foot one.
This one over here? No, it's not.
That little tiny shed is where the salt is?
Yes.
So can't they just put it in a different, I mean, it just seems like it's not.
All right, well, how about, would it be?
The existing salt shed is in the 75-foot
No.
setback? No.
It is not. Let me see if I could,
How did
zoom
I
in on
Google
this.
it?
No, let me zoom in on this.
It's, I guess it's just that little. Not this big one?
Here we go. Can you see the hand?
That rectangle is the salt shed.
This rectangle over here is the salt shed.
Okay. So it's not in the
It's not.
75-foot?
Here's the 75-foot
Yep, okay.
Okay.
setback. Here's the brook.
No,
Here's the
I
top.
get it, yep.
Here's the
We thought it was the
75.
big building.
Okay.
So, yeah, I
Talk
thought
about-
it was in
Not
the upper
this-
right corner,
Not this one.
not that one, but the one that's
Right
bolted onto
here.
the upper right corner of that one, I thought was the salt shed.
They said it's that, just that tiny little building.
Or at least that was labeled. Renee?
What? That's
That's
you're
the
looking at
salt
salt
shed,
shed.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I guess from an area perspective, I am wondering why couldn't the garage across the way there be used to store the salt? It's obviously much bigger, I don't know about the doors and whatnot to
Right.
get into it.
Well, how about,
But if you're gonna tear stuff down, I would tear everything down that's over there on
Yeah.
the stream side and leave the other garage temporarily for
Well,
storage.
would it be?
Well,
okay-
my whole point is, there may be no issue with storing the salt where it is now. I'm just wondering whether there is. I'm not proposing we move salt where it doesn't have to be moved to, just for the purpose of moving it. I'd just like to know there aren't any regulatory issues in kind of keeping this potentially non-conforming location where it is.
How about this? A condition that basically says that the salt shed can remain so long as the certification
Yeah,
is
I
provided.
think that's all Ted and I were looking for.
Yeah.
And they would be taking down the other big building that's in the
Mhm.
buffer.
Yeah. Oh, this building over here is gone.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that'd be good.
That'll be gone. These, I'm not even sure what these are over here.
The concrete pads,
Well,
So-
maybe an addition.
I'll this way here, go back to this, so, let's see. Actually shows it better on this one over here. Because you have the color, and actually the color, I guess, didn't come out very well in this scan. But yes, this whole area over here is gonna be, on your plans, is all green and is being revegetated. And I just wanna write this down here. Salt shed may remain, provided a certification
The
of
town shall provide certification that the salt shed that is to be retained meets all regulatory requirements. How about that?
State, federal,
Perfect.
municipal regulatory requirements, yes.
Yes, the intent is definitely to take it
Yeah,
down.
yes.
And I mean, it may, as long as we have the new salt shed coming, then that will definitely,
The only thing is though, is that if you wanna put the new salt shed somewhere like in here or somewhere along this area, you then have to come back to the board anyway for that approval. Since all you're asking for is the first two phases.
So how is this gonna work in the, how is the phase 3 and 4 plan gonna work going forward? How's that gonna be prepared? Is the reasoning for this two-phase approach just allow enough time to fully flesh out the phase 3 and 4?
for CSWDs, for them to really finalize their plans and have a better understanding of their site.
And if they can handle growth and
Right,
composting.
yeah.
and-
Yeah.
Because the interesting thing is in that realignment that I talked about, they can gain a lot of area. Instead of having, when you have two-way traffic, you have 24 feet.
I gotta stop you here.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, part of what you say is true with that, but it's not gonna get all the benefits you claim. There's a lot of containers on the site and a lot of space we need to access those containers. And your allegation that we didn't spend a lot of time thinking this through is not correct. The grades and the stormwater management was a big part of how we graded out the site and where we put our tipping wall. So we can certainly look at future revisions to our site and how it's laid out, but the fact is, we probably don't have enough space there as it is. And that's really the whole point of this. You guys raised it last time, you saw it right off the bat. Hey, you're getting less space than you have now, is it gonna work? And the short answer is, probably not as well as it works now.
That's actually incorrect, Brian. Right now, you have just under 25,000 square feet inside your fence.
That's right, and most
And-
of it's
and-
below the tip wall,
Yeah.
which is not space people use.
Well, let me-
All the space we have now is above the tip wall, which is space people use.
Yeah,
Steve?
Let me finish. So,
All right.
so what you're getting, even in the reduced area is better than 26,000 square feet. And before you found out about your own setback, you actually had 35,000
Doesn't
square
matter,
feet.
the setbacks are the setbacks.
Yep,
The space above the tip wall is smaller than the space that we currently have.
Well, if I may.
Yeah.
I think basically the town would love to work it out with you.
We're gonna
Which
talk
is-
about that tomorrow, we have a meeting
Perfect,
tomorrow.
perfect.
Yeah.
But for right now, all the town is asking for from the development review board is those first two phases. The option of putting in those, and I didn't put this into the write-up, but the option to put in the additional stormwater ponds, if need be, on phase 3. And basically to discuss the matter more and come back.
So I guess I have a question. If nothing is changing about the garage site, then where does that leave you for phase 3 and 4 as far as the CWSD site?
Well, actually, this building's coming down. This building is coming down. This whole area here is being revegetated.
That's got nothing to do with the
But what Dick's
CWSD
saying
site.
is if you
Oh.
aren't gonna make changes, if there's no changes to the garage, there's no changes that can ever change to the CSW site.
I mean, how in 2 years or whatever it is, when we come back to look at phase 3 and 4, do we not end up with the same plan we had last week? If the garage is physically the same size and the apron's the same size and all that stuff, and then all the drainage is put in and the storm pods are put in the same way to the plan we have now, I don't see how the CWSD, I don't even know if I'm, did I use the right? You know, I don't see how that changes. It doesn't magically get bigger. There's not magically more space for it than there was last week.
Well, it may stay where it is and the salt shed goes down where they were proposing CSWD to be. I don't know. There's lots of other options that they can,
That was actually the way I first looked at it, is what if the salt shed went down there?
right. So there are options there. I don't know if it's as convenient or as efficient for the highway department. I think that's probably why it was placed where it was placed. You
How
know,
come the salt shed is like 9,000? You know, it's like, what, 10, it looks like it's like 10,000 square feet. It's huge compared to the little building it is in.
I think they're
now.
planning on putting not just the salt, but the salt and the sand mix in there is what I gathered
Right.
last week.
And,
And it allows for the town to get better pricing if you order in larger quantities.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
and I'll add one more thing Mike Anthony mentioned to me was, it also gives them some space to actually bring the vehicles into it and load the vehicles up with the sand and salt and be out of the weather.
So anyways, there are some options, other options that can be kicked about.
I think as Steve acknowledged, that the proposed site is actually larger in square footage than the existing site.
You'll get disagreement.
Yeah, I guess you guys will work that out. That's not part of the proposal right now, I guess.
That's right.
That's the whole idea, just to take that out of the proposal and
Well, the only, thing I guess I would ask in terms of just overall flexibility, and you know, basically our concern is, it would seem as if the town garage and its attendant pieces work just fine, as depicted. I think what's vague is just exactly what you're gonna work out tomorrow, is how is the CSWD site gonna work? Both now and in the future, and I think that's our collective concern, I would say. And I guess in that regard, I recognize that as you sort of adjust the grade, that 80-foot apron on the south side of the town garage, I'm not quite sure, I know Mike said that, hey, that's what he needs. To turn a snowplow around doesn't require 80 feet. You know, you could do with less. Yes, if you have a great big, you know, truck delivering something, which I'm imagining happens on a very, very rare occasion, and even then, you watch people who drive those rigs finesse those pieces of equipment. It just seems as if that would conceivably loosen things up a little bit, potentially. So I think that's, even though we're talking about approving phase 1 and phase 2, which kind of locks that in, I think it's something worth considering. And I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't pretend to know just exactly how all those radii work. I mean, I looked at it a little bit. It seems like, you know,
We did the new operations headquarters for Green
Yeah.
Mountain Power,
yeah.
and they needed 90 feet. And their trucks are smaller
They are.
than the snowplow with a plow on it, which I think he said was 67 feet long. So Mike feels like the 80 is really minimal.
The snow.
Yeah, so we're happy to look at it, yeah.
So I guess the other concern concern I had was the waiving of $8,000 worth of landscaping. I wasn't really in favor of that. I thought there could be something done around the entrance to the building. I understand it's a industrial building, so putting a bunch of, flowers and bushes around it would not survive very well, but there's also a human entrance to it. I can't help but think that there could be some greenery, some bushes, something, a picnic area that could be provided for the employees that are there. Where some of that money could be spent, maybe not all 8,000 of it, but it's in the regs that there's a certain amount that's supposed to be spent. And I don't know, the fact that some trees are being saved along the creek and not being taken out, to me isn't really a justification for waiving the rest of the.
And maybe Dick, I'll try and be more blunt than you.
Be my guest.
Some people on the board have a feeling that the town sometimes comes before us on the cheap, and we're not sure we appreciate that. There's no reason we should treat the town differently than other applicants. We're pretty inflexible in terms of landscaping requirements for private applicants. I'm not sure, although we're all spending our town dollars here, there's a good justification for being any less rigorous with respect to the town.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, especially since we're now kind of breaking up the phases, if it probably doesn't make sense to spend the whole budget now and put stuff somewhere where it maybe isn't going to be going or isn't the best place for it later as the other phases are fleshed out. But I think the money ought to be maintained and available for future landscaping, bushes or whatever as the project is finished up. I don't think we should just at this point throw it away.
I don't think that's what they're asking for.
I thought they were basically asking
I think
to
they're
waive
waiving it.
8,000.
They're waiving 8,200 right now because the cost of the project's gone down. That's how I'm reading it, right? Because you're not building the salt shed. Are you still above
But it's
the
still in the
required
budget.
amount?
Actually, Steve, you wanna take that
I
up?
don't have the application in front of me, Mitch, so.
So each time they came back with another phase, they would have to do more.
I just wonder if, the cost of the total construction, I think this is what what Dennis was asking. Has the cost of the total construction gone down enough where if you were to do a recalculation based on just what you're doing now, would it be reduced by an amount, a certain amount that would actually make that $8,200 applicable later on?
Well,
Well, we don't know, it's out to bid right now, so we haven't gotten pricing back. When we do, we'll know. It'll either go up or down. And there was a shortfall on the $8,000. So it sounds like the board would like, we can certainly find a place for $8,000 worth of plantings. If that's what's desired.
We can put it in escrow for further dispensation.
And you can also
As
just
the site develops.
make a condition that it either be a plan come back to the board within, say, 2 years to show how you're gonna actually utilize that $8,200, or it could be incorporated in the next phases when the town comes back. You can throw a condition in there like that as well.
I mean, my take would be by the end of the final phase, that, all the landscaping has been figured out and the budget can be spent. I think it makes no sense to throw a bunch of bushes in now that you're gonna run over later or dig up, so,
But we have no guarantee there may be a 3 or a 4. I mean, that could be in the far distant future.
True, but I think there's at least gonna be a salt shed, right? It's pretty
Yeah.
confident
right,
that that's,
absolutely.
that's gotta be coming in somehow, some way. So maybe there's not 4, maybe there's 3, but, and the third is the final stage, but, so I don't know if we can figure out how to,
Well, I mean, just
Or
say
that.
2 years, at a minimum 2 years, come back with another proposal, something like that. And Mitch's proposal, I think, was smart.
Ted, you writing that up?
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Ted, anything else from the public?
Actually,
The board?
Yeah, on regards to hours, I guess I'm wondering, why are you limiting hours when you never know when the garage is gonna be needed? I mean, you, on number 5, you say Monday through Thursday, 7 to 4:30, and Friday, 7 to 11. I mean, there's emergencies that happen, so,
and then the
Well,
next sentence
there's
is,
the next sentence, too.
it says during, okay, I'm sorry, I missed that part. I guess I'm just, why?
I think
Okay.
everyone understands it may be there at the middle of
Okay,
the night.
yep, I
and
just-
Summer or winter.
Yep, I missed the second part.
Yeah.
And then, just more clarification on the stormwater discharge for a 1-year storm event. Can you explain that further?
Actually, I could. We had the stormwater engineer in here in the last meeting, and I've had some conversations with her as well. Basically, the stormwater ponds were designed to capture and infiltrate the entire 1-year storm event. And when you look at peak flows for the 10-year storm, the 100-year storm, when you take out that big amount of water and infiltrate it, what comes in later on is at a much lower peak volume than the existing conditions. So the 1-year storm event, everything, the way the stormwater ponds are designed, everything that needs to come out of that, off the site is infiltrated, which is the best way of handling it. I'll even simply add that when you do have the overflow from the stormwater ponds, it will sheet flow into the revegetated areas over here, which provides even more water quality treatment before going into the brook. It's like the best type situation.
The hours for Friday is 7 AM to 11 AM.
That's their typical from the website.
I would think we'd want to just keep it the same all 5 days. I mean, those hours could change. Those aren't normal hours. I mean, so you wouldn't have to come back. I mean, I would,
Yeah, makes sense.
I mean, that's just in a finding of fact, right? There's not really an order that even mentions the hours.
We could add a,
But we can say that in the findings of facts, we discussed it, and then just decided to make another sentence. It's not actually an order.
you have anybody here from the public?
I have a comment.
Okay.
How's, at the end of phase 2, how is the stormwater going to appropriately work? And that phase, is it gonna meet state requirements? It seems a little, because a bunch of it is not completed phase 2.
right, which is why the comment is that the option of putting in the additional stormwater in the later phases can be done to make sure that there is compliance.
So it's an option but not a requirement.
It can be a requirement. Just, you can make it also a condition that the, and actually Sherry in your office kind of suggested this as well, that in addition to the first 2 phases, just that the stormwater ponds can be built in the later phases to make sure that the site is compliant with the stormwater regs.
Well, we don't want to build them now until they get it figured out, the rest of the site, right?
Well, do we want to approve a plan that we don't know will ever end? without compliance with existing regulations.
I think you make that your 2-year, couple that with the other 2-year stuff, that in 2 years you come back with a final plan that closes all the ponds.
Okay, that sounds
Either,
sensible.
either you have a full site plan, a final site plan, or you at least come back with a plan that you finalize the ponds and that it is a functional and working system.
Works for me.
Anything else?
Do we want to take this up in deliberative session to go over all the
I think we're
changes?
gonna need to see another draft.
Okay, that sounds good to me, too. I would like to see it written up. So, okay.
So I would like to close the public hearing and direct staff to send out a revised approval.
I know that time is a big consideration for the
Well,
town.
we're meeting in 2 weeks, and if we have to deal with it as a board within 2 weeks, I'm happy to do it by email or possibly in a special meeting. But I personally don't want to deal with it tonight. I don't think that's
Okay.
sensible.
Have 45 days from the time we close this version of the open, the public hearing, right?
Okay.
What's this holding up? What's not having,
I'd like to start construction about November 1st. That's the hope in the plan.
so you need to get a building permit? Does the town have to get a building permit? Must be.
Well, and then they have a 30-day appeal period from any decision of ours.
Right, so it's, you guys are the,
No, we haven't issued a decision yet.
Act 250 is pretty well done. They've written their draft opinion.
A lot of times, planning and zoning will write a permit 15 days into a DRB approval, so that the last 15 days of the two approvals will run concurrently. Those type of permits are always conditioned that should the DRB decision be appealed, then that zoning permit will be null and void. So,
So are there just two things we've talked about? One being the certification of the salt shed, retained salt shed, and the other being the landscaping? Are those the two?
Well,
Well, no, we're
salt
talking about
shed-
site plan approval or kind of something being sketched out within
Stormwater
2 years and so forth. There's some issues out there, I think.
right, because there was the stormwater and the salt shed. Well, no, the salt shed was one thing, it was the landscaping and the stormwater. That has to be,
Well, right now,
within 2 years.
stormwater says, all stormwater infrastructure shall be placed in the construction phase shown on the plans and prior to certificate of occupancy for structures permitted for that phase. What is that? We want to change that somehow?
That seems right, because when the garage is built, the stormwater settlement that'll take the roof water and the water around it will be built as part of that.
Right?
And then the only other one is down at the south end of the site, when the driveway has been relocated, which is phase 3, and the stream bank is reforested, then that'll be built as well, and that'll take the lower part of the site.
That's part of phase 2, right? That reforestation is part of phase 2.
Yes, yeah, it is.
I'm not sure that we have a problem with the stormwater infrastructure. I think the order as suggested covers that. This is always going to be done in phases anyways.
I would still like to see a decision before I approve it. I'm happy to do it within 2 weeks.
And my only question about the stormwater was that from what I recall, the plans last meeting was that there was some swales and I don't know if they're technically catch basins or not, but that looked like they were running around the ends of what was proposed as the CWSD site, which isn't going in at this point, or at least not in the same, it's not envisioned the same way. So I assume that redirects, changes some of the stormwater plan that was envisioned for the whole site. And so obviously that stuff can't go in. until, you know, the rest of the site is done. I don't know.
Which I think the suggestion of just trying to take care of it in 2 years, put it in there, have it, it encourages the town to come back to deal with these remaining issues.
I am communicating with Andrea, and she or Jessica Luisos can answer any of the technical questions related to stormwater. So if there's something specific you want me to ask her, she's at a meeting in Charlotte, or she would be here right now.
So there's some ponds up by the building, as I recall, and that was for the building?
That's for the building.
And that will get built?
That's gonna build, as
Okay.
part of phase one.
Okay.
And the
And,
swale behind the building and be built as part of phase one.
and is there anything now for the pavement runoff of the current CWSD site? So
Everything just
it
runs
just
in.
runs toward the brook?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I don't think, I personally need another draft, because we've only talked about 3 minor modifications to this, and I will suggest these modifications and see if you're working with them. Number 5, all stormwater infrastructure shall be placed in the construction phase shown on the plan and prior to certificate of occupancy for structures permitted for that phase. In any event, all stormwater infrastructure shall be completed within 2 years of this approval. That's even if you don't do phase 3 and 4. Number 11 says the town shall provide certification that the salt shed that is to be retained meets all state, federal, and local and municipal regulatory requirements. And number 12 would be that additional landscaping to utilize the $8,200 shortfall in planned landscaping shall be proposed as part of the phase 3 and phase 4 site plan application that shall be submitted for approval within 2 years of this approval. I think that's what we've discussed. I don't know that we have any other open issues on phase 1 and 2.
All right, I'll defer on that.
So that would be my, I would propose that we approve the draft as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any more discussion?
I'll just ask, is there anything that's being proposed right now is gonna make something worse before it gets better?
I think it all gets better.
Yeah.
I think
It-
moving the
I'll just say
garage,
it-
moving the
even-
garage out of there and everything is making it a lot better.
If
And-
each step
and
is
even just-
addressing
And I'm just
future,
gonna say, as a person who's done a lot of stormwater designs and mitigation in my career doing engineering, this is an amazing improvement in terms of stormwater and how it's really helping you. Because the best thing you can do, stormwater, is infiltrate. The soils happen to be right to infiltrate. Taking the stuff off of the stream bank and the setback areas is huge. And even if it's not all of as great as what is designed for the full build-out, just simply having the runoff being able to go through a vegetated area before reaching the stream will provide very good water quality. So this is a huge improvement. It may not be, again, there may be a spot here or there that maybe might need a little something more in the further phases, but what you have here is just so much better than what exists today.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Everybody?
Thank you.
Okay.
See you in 2 years.
Or less,
you.
or way less, or way less.
If I may, with McKinnon, before going to the deliberation on rec fields.
Okay.
Right now, looking at all of the 10 to 12 acre 2-lot subdivisions that remain, there are 4 remaining ones. 2 of them are actually planned to be heard at the next meeting. The remaining 2, one being McKinnon and the other one being Francis, are both being worked upon by Civil Engineering Associates, being represented by Jack Milbank. And what he communicated to me was that he has all of the different designs, or pretty much the design set up, but they did have a septic issue where they're gonna have to use an innovative system for McKinnon. And what they are requesting is a 2-week extension for McKinnon. So instead of the deadline being October 15th, they want to make it October 29th. And by that time, they plan on having an application, actually an application for both of the remaining 10 to 12 acre subdivisions, and to be able to be heard in the second meeting in November.
Those are finals.
These are all finals. So hypothetically.
So,
you'll
and
have-
they're required to get these approvals by what, March of
End
2018?
of March of 2018.
Yeah.
So they're just asking, he's requested a 2-week extension. He could put in an application, but he wouldn't have the state water and septic application submitted.
We were concerned about you guys getting all these applications in January of 2018 and not being able to process them. It seems like that's not going to come to case.
No, it's
So-
actually.
So I'm fine with these extensions.
No.
Yeah.
Motion to approve a 2-week extension.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Now for.
Town of Hinesburg rec fields.
I have a handout.
So are we going to deliberative session?
No need to.
I don't think
Okay.
we
My
need
point
to.
of view.
What I have here is three
Unless we want to send those people in their way.
drafts, decisions, I should say draft partial decisions. I know that when we were discussing it last time, we weren't very clear as to which way we were going. So I really couldn't quite finish out the draft decision on each of these. So I've got like a basic boilerplate and some particular additional items on there. And something that we can just kind of fill in the blanks as to which way you want to go on it.
So I had a thought after our meeting, and I thought I'd save it. In rereading Lemro and Dickinson's letter on the project, it is a very half-hearted and not professional, and he actually does not offer a professional opinion that the road will work as it is built right now. And I think that if we believe there is reason to think that the road will work, I think we ought to have an engineer say that it'll work. Because if you read the third paragraph of his letter, it says, although the road is now at a different location, we have been told by Tom Air that it's constructed. We recommend that this top layer not be added yet. Additionally, the Rec Commission wishes to keep the road as constructed, believing that the 12-inch wide mowed grass shoulder should provide room for bike pedestrian access. And I don't get anything out of this letter that says, I, as an engineer, think this road will work.
And I went back actually to our draft decision, our original one, and we just spent so long on like hammering out that road. Do you,
Right.
like, I remembered, it brought back all the memories of how wide we wanted it and why we wanted it that wide, and it was for safety of pedestrians that were gonna be walking along the road because there might be parking overflow during big events. We spent a lot of time on
So-
the width of the road.
So as a minimum, I think there ought to be a condition that says, that the engineer shall provide, written opinion as to whether, as to, the adequacy of the road, for the, traffic flow it's apt to see.
Are we talking about width, depth, or both?
Yes, the road in general, the whole design, so basically, there was a road that was designed, there was a temporary road built, we're being asked to approve that temporary road as the final road. And, there's no, evidence from, an engineer that says, a civil engineer that says that road will be adequate. It's and even in his letter, he just describes it. He doesn't say it's gonna be adequate. He says they think it'll be adequate.
And the other thing is,
Thinking,
And they is not his company.
they is not his company, exactly right.
and then after the road, I have another thought too.
So that's my, suggestion that we, add a requirement that, the, civil engineer that they've hired provide, his opinion that, on the adequacy of the road.
And then you'd be fine where the road is?
Well,
I know, we went over, and that was the other thing that I remembered when we read the decision.
that's not, so,
I would not envision that being the final road if
know.
the development ever occurs.
right,
Which is why we didn't want it there initially.
right, exactly.
And we talked about it a lot.
Oh, yeah,
And I thought, put it where you expect the road to be, and then you're not necessarily wasting all the base that you put in.
right.
Now, it's gonna have to be pulled up. I don't see how that can be the final road.
Right. The fact that there was a approved design and we decided to do something else without changing the approved design is a whole nother.
Well, shouldn't that be the first order of business then? I mean, if we're not going to approve where the road is now, there's no need to have them invest in investigating its sufficiency, because it's not going to stay there.
Why improve it if it's gonna move, right? That's what you're saying, why add to it?
Yeah.
Well, part of me says that, at the time, we had a development proposal in front of us with a design for a road.
But they haven't asked us to move it.
Right, well, they are asking us to move it.
Well, they're asking to approve something that was built without our approval.
Right.
Shouldn't there be a more formal process that actually investigates the state of this development and the logicality of all of this in light of the build-out potential of this particular development?
Yeah, I don't know what that build-out potential is for
I
that
think
development.
from what I've heard. I think the idea behind it was that this road will be dug up at some point when BlackRock actually has a chance to do the Haystack Crossing development. So,
That's my understanding.
yeah, that's my understanding from what I got
Who
from
has the rights to the land right now? I mean, are the Bissnets able to, as long as they get it approved by us, put a road anywhere they want?
Actually,
Or do
I
you
don't,
even,
taking the actual people out there, technically, they built a road that was outside of the approved easement. So the landowner, I guess the Bissonets could technically say, get that road off our property, rebuild it in where it happens to be approved right
well, we
now.
heard testimony, that's where the
That's where
owner
business
wanted it.
Exactly. But that's the thing, he did say he wanted it there.
But he wants it there so that he can hay the field. He doesn't want it there so that he can put a development in later.
Right.
So that's no plan have we seen with that development shows the road there.
Exactly.
We have no idea how it will eventually develop out with all the questions and the variables.
But hypothetically or technically, the approval in terms of where the approved easement happens to be is obviously in a different location than where the road happens to where.
So they'd have to have a new easement.
And that's what they're requesting, is to move the easement to revise the subdivision approval, which would change the subdivision plot, to take the easement where it was approved and shift it over to the place.
So
where-
we really shouldn't even worry about what BlackRock was doing. That's for them to work out later.
It
I mean,
blows
it's
the site
they-
plan.
This
Well,
could
there is-
actually,
master
this
plan
may
out of the
even
water.
fit into BlackRock's next plan, you really don't know.
Probably not.
Well, I mean, the way you could deal with that is, look, as part of our order, we would say, we approved an access in location X. They build it in location Y for their own personal reasons. That may work out in terms of the site plan as it is fully built out. But in any event, when BlackRock wants to come back, we're gonna make them work at an access plan that is sensible for the site. And that may require them to basically take out a road that they've invested full infrastructure funds for, and that's just gonna be a cost of them doing business.
Yeah.
Just put it in our order and findings so they know what's potentially down the road.
Because our main concern is that the road is built correctly.
At this point, I think we're mostly concerned that the road is gonna work as a road, whether it's located sensibly for whatever happens going forward. But we can require them to understand that they have to reconfigure it if that is essential to any future development.
Or
We should tell them that, or just, they have to deal with that between,
Well, I mean, I think they're asking us to basically approve a road that we didn't approve.
But
And,
it's not BlackRock asking us to
No.
approve the road,
That's the town.
it's the town. And when
Understood.
BlackRock, when the road's in the wrong
understood,
place-
but we can certainly recognize it's not where we approved it. And we're gonna recognize that going forward and deal with that as a contingency.
And that could be a finding of fact, that could be a finding of fact in the decision.
Conclusion.
I think I
and-
actually put something in there in the very draft that I kind of gave you, something to that effect. Which, by the way, at the end of this, I
And we can
just
say,
hope-
the road doesn't satisfy us and it's gonna have to be upgraded. And if you wanna do that, fine, just recognize, future conditions may require it to be taken out and relocated. And that money would be wasted.
I mean, you can definitely.
I mean, it's just trying to let them know what's exactly in the regulatory horizon.
I mean, I have a feeling the Bissnets and the developer have looked at this, I would think, and they were gonna work around it, but maybe I'm wrong.
Oh, they might.
Or with the change in the access easement location, if they do move the easement to another location, the town property will have to then come back to this board to change to revise the subdivision again.
I mean, Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't ever, but that would affect a couple of properties and the house line going right at the back of the property, is that right? Yeah,
Yeah, the whole line of houses along there.
yeah, and they could change that. They're basically maximum build out anyway.
Right.
Let me see if any of these plans will help. Actually, I think it was the last one. If that's helpful, putting that one up. I mean, originally, if you can follow the hand, this was where the prior road was. And I have that drawing on here as well if you want to see it. So, they're basically subdivision-wise asking to change this to over here.
I'm guessing the developer would rather have the road where it is so that they're not driving through the development. You know, I mean,
That's another possibility too?
driving
Where
through the
was it
street.
supposed to
Yeah, but
be?
they
I
had,
can't remember.
they had like 10 lots along that side.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
It's not that-
No, up
Right
against
through
it, but they're
It's
driving
really hard to
behind the
see.
houses, not.
Yeah, but
Through
now,
the
now you
development.
don't have a look, you don't have a view across the field, you have a view across the road.
Right, I don't think.
So
they want
it's,
rolling
that's,
their
I don't think
backyard.
that makes a better house site where the road's at, sorry.
Does that involve any of the mixed-use industrial development we were talking about?
No.
No,
I think
That's closer in.
I just think that's something they
That
got.
they'd love to see go away, I think.
I think we just gotta make sure the road is built correctly and it's not affecting stormwater and all that.
I mean, those were all the single-family homes, so I think they view those as the more prime home sites on the site.
But that's between the developer and the owner. That's,
I don't think the developer was contacted about this.
we have no idea.
Well,
That's their problem, not
Based on what
ours.
we heard, Bissnet's talked to the town rec folks. I never heard anybody say anybody talked to BlackRock and how this played into their master plan.
I mean, don't you have to look at this of what's happening now?
I think so. I think we need to look at it as a clean slate, because we have no idea what they're coming back with.
Why do we do master plans then?
Well, BlackRock does not own that property. They may have
Right,
an application pending on a property they don't own. And if ownership changes, that's their problem, not ours.
I think so.
So what was the road specifications the road was built to? 20 feet wide instead of 26. And what about the depth of like base? We were so specific. That's why we were like 24 inches of, on top of fabric
Usually it'll be
and all this
18, I
stuff.
think, and they're doing 12 in a high water table area.
Yeah, and there's,
Because we said in our order? Which one? What are we? Findings of fact.
and I gave you printed copies of those three decisions.
We initially said we wanted a 26-foot wide gravel road with 3 inches of stabilized shoulder, 3 feet of stabilized shoulder, and 24 inches of gravel with road fabric. Do you know if they used road fabric?
No, they didn't put road fabric in there, 12 inches, no way.
Well, that's why I just want the engineer to offer an opinion as the construction of the road and its adequacy.
So the applicant is requesting approval for the following revisions. Do we want to go down that list and, like the gravel access road, do we want to say no? We want it built the way,
Yeah.
and shouldn't we just go down that list and
Where is that?
it's on the draft?
So these are the old ones.
Before we get to the differences, I forgot what the answer was to the path, because we were really clear that we wanted that in place.
Well, we
When-
added something here, it has to be put in place once the 3 fields are up and, I read that here somewhere.
That was an order, I think.
That was an order in the original decisions, and the first order that's in these drafts, and again, these are very much drafts. I mean, if you could piece through it tonight, great, but it wouldn't surprise me if at the end of this, you basically say, here's the basic concepts and how we're going, and just have me write this, finish it up. Exactly.
So what was the end of that story? Did he say path or no path? I can't remember.
The path was actually in the original decisions.
Right, but then when we asked him about it, he was like, I don't know if it's, it's kind of a path to nowhere, is it worth it?
Well, it's conclusion, well, actually, this is conclusions, order. Order number 1 in this is going to always be, all provisions and conditions from prior town approvals that have not been specifically revised shall remain in force. So you've got,
They didn't ask for a specific provision about the path, is my
Correct.
question. Okay,
so that's,
okay. I just wanted
and
to
in going through it, yes, they have a requirement to actually put in the path, so that doesn't change. And I forget if it's
they're
prior.
putting it to the bridge, I forget.
Yeah, it's
They're
actually,
gonna pop it out to
yeah.
116. Because remember,
I
we had
believe-
that debate,
yeah.
and he was like, Tom Mayer was like, what good would it do to bring it out to 116?
But he's not asking,
to
not do
revise
it,
it,
so-
so that, yeah, it's basically, it's a moot point in the sense that he didn't ask to revise it. It's not, it's in the original decision to have it, so, I think that
Okay.
just simply saying that if it's not changed, it remains.
Order still remains, okay.
Exactly.
so the revision of the location, are we okay with the location? As long as it is built the way it,
Of the roadway.
of the roadway? What's that?
Of the roadway.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking
I'm okay with it where it is.
It's kind of like them paying their money and taking their chance.
Okay, but we want the crown and width built the way we asked for it to be.
Well, or we want an engineer to certify that the way it's built will be adequate.
Is everybody okay with that?
Are we going to?
Well,
yeah,
that,
Are we gonna be okay with
that,
the
that's a
20-foot
minimum.
road forever?
That's a minimum.
Right?
I mean,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have-
you
We
may-
have to assume this is a forever road now.
It may be that way,
Mhm.
right, that's the way you look at it, right?
And-
But the
if you-
engineer's not gonna tell us if people can pull off to the side and be out of the way and,
Well, you
right?
do-
Cause we wanted,
Is the intent of the road different now if the development never comes through?
No.
No?
Then it needs to meet the original intent
So,
of what you were looking for.
cause
If
we're
that-
worried if, on big events, people are gonna park on that road.
Then it needs to meet,
And I would think that would definitely.
And basically, the rec committee was saying last time, we don't expect them to be,
I've been to a
that
lot of
big
soccer
events
games,
anymore.
that usually happens.
People don't quite make it to the parking lot.
I'm less concerned about the actual width of the road than because I did drive it down there the other day, and it is the way they described, like it's very flat, so you could see how it wouldn't be difficult to even like pull off the side into that grass and park, and that felt really good. But I worry about the depth of the gravel.
well, it's also a very wet area.
Yeah.
It's probably right
The
there.
water table is very high there,
Yeah, it's
higher
very dry
than
right
at your
now.
house, most places in town. So who knows what it'll be like in April. when the-
So,
When soccer season is.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's true.
so if they make it deeper, then it's gonna be harder to pull off to the side, right?
So then
Well,
it
unless
needs to
they
be
dig.
wider.
Dig down what they've already put in and,
Oh, I don't.
Put the fabric in.
I mean, if this is eventually going to be a town, a road that could become a town road, that could become part of a development, let's say BlackRock or whoever it is works it in, they're going to expect the town to take this road over, and it has to meet town standards. I mean, just like, not Kenny, Creekside and any of those roads. I mean, it's potentially a road that's going to be, access to homes in the BlackRock. If it does go through there based on the BlackRock design as they'd shown it, okay, fine, maybe they decide to move those houses over and that does become the main road to access your house. Well, it's a main road now, it's not some,
I don't think we
path.
need to think of it that way, though. I mean, then they would have to upgrade it. If it's gonna be moved and it's gonna go to houses. I don't think
Well,
we should
we
think
gave
of
them
it
the
as it's going to
opportunity to
houses
take it
now.
out by putting it in where the road was going to be, or to have someone else come along and spend the dollars to upgrade it. They chose not to use that route. I
I
mean,
think you have to mention if the development goes through, the road has to be reviewed to meet that standard versus whatever the standard needs to be for just going to a rec field.
I wonder if that is covered when you basically say you have the boilerplate provision of further development shall require further review from the board. So,
It says, we, put in our decision that, class 3 roads require 24 to 18 inches of gravel. What is a class 4 road? Does that have a standard?
no,
No standards on class 4?
They don't maintain them.
We don't maintain them.
So there is no standard.
it's, as I understand, drainage structures that might happen to be in there. If there's a culvert on a class 4 road, the town will go in and maintain that. But there is no standard in terms of the actual road itself.
Can you say if there's ever any further construction, then the road will have to be brought up to that next standard?
I think that also kind of comes into the further development, but that could be that could clearly be reiterated in a particular way. Ted, are you writing?
Yeah,
Um,
I'm just writing about the engineer.
So what
Thank you.
happens, is that, I know they talked about it, but what happened because they're getting rid of the, channels next to the road?
Well, There are two ways really of looking at that. If you look at it in terms of just the straight stormwater, sheet flow off of a road, it's not a bad thing. Windows would basically channel the stormwater to a particular place, but you aren't, when you don't have the channels, you aren't draining draining the road itself. So you will get freeze thaw and such where the road will have to be maintained more.
Would that support more gravel because of no channels then?
More gravel would probably have it last longer. But the question is, it becomes a whole maintenance issue. And it's up to you how you want to go with that. I mean, you could. You could even go as basically what Dick was suggesting, that should this road meet Class 3 standards? I think that's where Dick was kind of going with that. So, I mean, you have these different options. You could look at it in sense of, well, it's it's like a temporary road, and somebody's going to come back later on, and worst comes to worst, the town has to go in and maintain this thing. Or you could say, you know, why don't we make it something bigger right now, which might have it last and work a little bit better, but that would be just something that would then have to be
So do you think
moved.
that would be part of the engineer saying if the road was gonna meet standards, that he would talk about the drainage and?
Because what about the culvert? Why are they changing the culvert? Why aren't they thinking that they needed to increase the culvert size?
All right. I'll just say, as far as the road, you can really go either which way, and I want to give you a chance to look at, discuss that, how you want to go with that. As far as the culvert, and again, what was presented in the, just kind of reiterating it, the larger culvert, I think it was a 52-inch diameter or equivalent. They gave an elliptical equivalent. I don't remember the exact numbers on it. But the assumption on that particular culvert was the Haystack Crossing development being built. What they're saying now, or what was said in that narrative, was that they sized it, and looking at the existing conditions without any change, that a 30-inch culvert would be needed to just completely accommodate the structure. But it's a 24-inch culvert right now, which is a little smaller. And their contention, and again, I'm kind of quoting here, or quoting, was that it actually worked at this point. You could also look at it in the sense that if you had an extreme storm over there, since the only use of the property right now is the rec fields, chances are in an extreme storm, no one would be using that road. And if the town had to go back and fix the road afterward, if that happened to fail, then that would be a cost to the town.
Well, isn't it the problem that it backs up the water up the rest of the?
I looked at the contours, and it wouldn't go back that far. It would still stay very much on the Haystack property. Again, looking at the contours and looking at the top of the road, where that actually becomes equal. And
And I feel like we had a lot of discussion over that too, initially, that.
And
we
please
said-
educate me. Go for it.
No, that's okay, that we talked about the culvert, and we said that it would, we were trying, the back and forth was, they didn't necessarily want to do a road to the standard that we wanted them to do it, because they said it was only temporary. So we said, okay, fine, if it's only temporary, then put it where it's going to really go, and make it permanent, and put in the money. And so then I think that they changed their mind and swung it the way they originally wanted it, that would be only temporary. So that is kind of where
I understand.
we're
Absolutely.
at that way. So it feels kind of like, and maybe our thoughts have changed in that we're okay if it's really only going to be used for the rec path with not having as high standards. But that's a little bit of the history. The same thing goes with the culvert. I think that we were talking that's, I don't remember if it was an order, is it? Did we talk about the culvert?
It was in the I think there was some discussion
Findings of fact?
in the stream buffer. I think it was in the stream buffer, actually, that's the draft one there. I think it was in the original stream buffer decision.
I don't know if I have that one.
I actually made a copy of that in what I just handed out.
Do we not, I mean, I'm not knowledgeable on this topic, but do we not have just a straightforward standard for road construction, whether it's a class 1, a class 2, or a class 3 road?
There are standards.
And, are people not just automatically obligated to construct the road to one of those standards, depending on which one is appropriate or suitable for a particular purpose?
I don't think it's
This-
in our regulations, I think we have town road standards.
Mhm. But they're fairly specific and finite. And so is this not a situation where we seem to be sort of going around the bus? If this is a class 3 road, does it not need to be built according to the
Well, it
town's?
is.
Well, part of the problem is, we don't know what they're proposing this road is, as permanent or temporary.
Mhm.
And maybe we're trying to get into their heads too much.
Probably.
I mean, is it in essence a glorified driveway going to a very specific use
Well, it's an
where,
80 parking lot, 80 car parking lot it's going to, so.
yeah,
I mean,
That sounds
And that is very
anticipates some
public.
traffic, right?
fairly permanent function.
mm-hmm,
So why would the access road to it not be categorized as a?
yeah.
The end point is permanent. The access, I think we understand, may be a bit flexible. Although, I think they're playing some games with us on this, and maybe we just have to pin them down.
Because that is one way to go.
I actually have to leave, sorry. Recusing myself from the deliberative session.
So my suggestion is that we put a condition in that says this: the project engineer shall assess the road as constructed and shall provide a report detailing the adequacy, detailing their professional opinion on the adequacy of the construction for use by playing field attendees, spectators, and spectators, including bus traffic. The report shall provide recommendations for required improvements, if necessary. The applicant shall return to the DRB with proposals to address any required improvements.
Are you gonna, put it in, is the road include the culvert?
I guess that would include is the culvert in the section that they put in, or the section that was put in by
The doctors?
the doctor's office, the hospital
I
office?
No,
Doctors
I-
wouldn't have needed it.
I could bring that back up.
No, well, here, the town put that in?
Yeah, it's in a different location.
Oh,
Well, Ted, this is for a site plan approval. It's not like we have another phase in this application,
No, I
so-
know, but-
What, are you
I'm-
asking for I'm fine if we get some kind of engineering report, but as long as we table this until we get it.
well, I think we closed the public hearing, didn't we?
You did close the public hearing.
So I'm just making that a condition,
I'll- Actually, let me,
Well, I
let me
think we need
answer
to know what the
Sarah's
condition, what the report's
Sure,
gonna
okay.
say.
we could just say that and send them back. Is the road our biggest issue here? Landscaping, of course, is part of it.
they removed those cedars and,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with, I'm leaving. but
I'm
okay
kind
with
of
it.
okay with keeping the landscaping open
Yeah.
until we have a better idea what's going on.
That's my take. So
In front of
I'm
it.
okay with not putting in cedars
Yeah.
right now, but I'm not okay with saying,
Yeah,
you can drop
escrowing,
$6,000.
escrowing money is great. Yeah,
Because they've already talked about structures.
That's
I
right.
mean, there's storage shed, and I assume maybe they want to talk about bathrooms at some day.
Yeah.
Restrooms, and it seems only makes sense that you're going to have some sort of landscaping around such buildings.
Ted, I think what we should do is, I think we need some kind of engineering report on the adequacy, but if the town has a sense that we're gonna be demanding that, they may think twice about where they really want to relocate it.
No, I think they're pretty committed to keeping it there, but.
Well, the town may be, but maybe the landowner isn't in light of what BlackRock might want to do.
I don't know.
I mean, the town's the applicant, but the town's not the landowner.
Well, we can just, if you want, we can just reopen the public hearing and ask for this.
I think that's probably what we ought to do.
I would recommend going through the other aspects of it, so when you reopen, if you're deciding to reopen the hearing, that you have it with everything that you might plan on doing.
I think that's the biggest, I think, in my mind, that's the only open issue.
The adequacy of the road.
Yeah. The other things are pretty minor.
And you feel you can't do that with a condition? And
Well-
I'm just asking it as a,
I'm flexible here on, I was making it a condition, but it is a pretty big condition. You know, it's basically saying we don't have enough, we really don't have enough information and, from that letter that, to address the adequacy of that. It's, all it does is describe it, offers no opinion about it. And my guess is there's a reason for that. And that by asking for this, there'll be some feedback from their engineer.
And could we ask why or how their assessment might change if the road were built as approved by us?
I mean, the engineers assessment,
Yeah. Yeah,
if they were to follow what the original.
yeah. And maybe there are issues about that.
Well, I think they designed, I think these engineers designed the original road. And my gut feel is the reason they designed it the way they designed it is to meet the needs of the project.
Well, by the original road, I'm talking about what we prescribed.
That's what I mean, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, the road that we approved, I think was designed to some standard by the engineers they hired. And when you don't build it like that for the same use, my guess is that engineer's not gonna find it adequate.
So could we just deny if we deny one of these revisions, we have to deny the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
well, hypothetically, it's three different applications. You could hypothetically approve the changes in the stream buffer if you think the 24-inch pipe is fine for now. You could approve hypothetically even the subdivision revision saying it's okay to move the road there, and then possibly deny the site plans. This way you're only doing one of the three, just as an option, if you'd
Well,
like.
part of the engineer's assessment is adequacy of the
Alignment and the culvert?
culvert.
Yeah, okay. Just options.
Yep. And I think you need the whole thing anyways. Getting part of it doesn't really
Yeah.
buy anything. And so,
So as goofy as it sounds, asking for an independent engineer, since, a town-appointed engineer, well, it's a town-appointed project, so they already have an engineer.
right.
I mean,
No, I'm just saying the project engineer, no, the same guy. But
well, if he said the road was good before, why would he now
He
say?
He
He
didn't. Read it. Read what he said. He just described what it is.
He didn't
He didn't,
ascertain that it's.
he offered no opinion as to its adequacy, or he just described what he had been told it is.
To ask
Okay.
this another way, what happens if you prove it as is? I'm not suggesting you do it this way. You prove it as is, and if it fails, what repercussions do we have?
Well, the problem I have with that is treating the town the same way we would treat a, we would be wild if a developer came in and said, I decided to put it somewhere else.
Well,
Would you please approve it? We've had that happen. and
Right.
We've sent them packing.
right, and
and-
that's why I'm asking the
Yeah,
question.
and that's why that doesn't appeal to me at all.
Right.
because-
Not only is it in the
Right.
wrong place, it's not built to the standards
Right.
that were required.
Right.
Another possibility, just throwing out possibilities here. Maybe you might want to condition this that it goes up to the Class 3 standards, and before the rec fields could be used, that is independently certified to meeting those standards. Or bring it back to the standards of the prior decision, and have it certified as such.
Well, they're already being used, we're not gonna cut back on that, right?
Suggestions?
Yeah, and I guess I'm fine with having, with having the engineer, even though he's already on the project.
Yeah.
Okay, give us your professional
Right.
opinion.
That's exactly what I asked for, because he
You know,
didn't
one
offer-
that you put your name behind.
Because he didn't offer one, I think, and I believe on purpose, he didn't offer one, that's my conclusion.
What standard does it need to meet to provide a road to a recreation field?
Well, I don't know that, I said.
Shouldn't we ask that?
I asked him to assess the adequacy for the, you know,
I envision buses, so the weight, and then that they may have to pass each other on this road without going off on the shoulder.
It's a very high water table too.
Um,
It's especially critical.
So why did we close the public hearing? We need to get better about leaving this stuff open.
Because you could also go
I
into.
thought
I mean, I think we had
5
enough
years ago.
issues, we should have left it open.
What you could also do is go into a deliberative session before closing the hearing to discuss, do you have enough information? But,
I think you should know when you,
What?
when you're done with the you know, for better or worse, we don't always leave things open, and many times we think we have enough information until we start deliberating about it. And
Until you get into the
it does
weeds.
happen. So this was
We just let it happen twice.
this was the letter.
Oh, yeah.
Look, that part right there, it's like, I'm not offering an opinion, I'm just describing how it's built.
Yeah.
What I'm told how it's built.
Yeah. So I'm either willing to condition it, or I'm willing to make a motion that we reopen the public hearing and ask for that engineer's assessment.
I think, I mean, the only, maybe not the only, but another problem I can think of with the condition is now that it puts it on the zoning administrator. So he's the one that has to,
Yeah.
or she has to determine that, you know, the report either does or doesn't meet approval, or that it would make the board happy if the board read the report.
I move we are open.
Okay, that'll be my motion, that we reopen the public hearing and ask for that.
I would say, let's reopen it to November 7th.
Sure.
You've got 4 new hearings. Well Pump has been continued to the 17th. There are 3 other new hearings that are actually in on that as well. So there'll be 4 new applications on the 17th.
Well, is there a big
So-
rush on this?
I don't think so. I think
So
November,
let's move
that's
it
why
to-
I'm just saying, moving
Move
it
it
to,
to the next one.
which would be November
I
7th.
don't think we want
That's my,
4. We don't want 4.
the first 3 should be really quick.
Okay.
Okay.
We haven't
Want that?
Do we have a second?
Actually, Greg second, I believe. No, actually,
more
Greg made the
discussion?
motion, Ted made the second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that's reopen for, do you want
All
to?
issues, most specifically the road.
Do you have enough of
Escrowing,
You know, I'll put something
landscaping
together and
funds.
send it around.
Okay.
And then I'll send that to Dawn.
Any other news?
I'm just telling you that on the 17th, yeah, we have 4 new hearings. 2 of those 10 to 12 acre 2-lot subdivisions. We have on the agenda.
Those are finals.
Those are finals.
Finals, yeah.
Final subdivisions. We have a person who's coming in for conditional uses to change a camp to a year-round residence and to expand a non-conforming structure. And then Well and Pump, which has been, and I apologize, were you here for Well and Pump? At the very beginning of the meeting, they continued it. Our apologies on,
It's okay. It was very interesting. Yes, I
I do.
But if you have comments or concerns, you could email me. And my name's Mitch Sipes. I'm the Development Review Coordinator. And information's on
That's
the.
okay, it was
But
very interesting anyway.
So that's all I have on that.
Move to adjourn.
That's what I get for being a few minutes late. I thought, oh, well, you know, they're doing this other thing first, which is gonna take forever.
Just call me next time.